Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Lunta Di La Paulo and I am accountant consultant here in Chicago. But above everything else, I am African, Angolan, and in this YouTube channel, I usually share about different topics from my views on economics, political trends across the continent, and so forth. And sometimes, rarely I do it, but I like to share some motivation to the entrepreneurial community across the continent. And today, my hope and my goal with this video is to share a little bit about the Angolan Sovereign Fund. So, just to give you a quick background into this fund, it was set up in the year 2012 by the then president of the Angolan government, the head of the state, President José Eduardo dos Santos. He set up this fund in 2012 with the hope of using some of the revenues from oil to help future generations. So, across the world, many countries have these so-called sovereign funds that invest across the world in different assets to ensure that the country will start diversify their economy to also give future generations something to live on in case their natural resources runs out, right? So you've heard probably about the Qatar's sovereign fund, the Saudi Arabia sovereign fund, and other large funds across the world are out there. And many of them are in hundreds of billions of dollars and so forth. So the Angolan government launched this fund again in 2012 with $5 billion in asset. So this fund have been managed since then by different investment groups, but due to lack of transparency, we don't actually know who managed these funds. But here's some of the information that I thought is really interesting to look at. And I would encourage other Africans across the continent to look into where their governments are putting money, are investing in terms of assets. And here's one thing that to me was shocking, right? To look into where the investment is being made. So the Angolan Sovereign Fund, as you can see here in this chart, chart, they have invested in every single continent across the world, but almost nothing is invested in Africa, literally. North America accounts for 50% of the fund's investments. Europe accounts for another 19%, Asia 16%, multiple continents, we don't know what those are, 13%. And then you have the Australian continent, you have South America, and Africa is marginally inexistent. And we're also seeing, where they're investing in hedge funds, in some other global investment funds, in money markets, in fixed income type of instruments and securities, and the different sectors where they are investing: finance, government funds, other funds, technology, large scale industry and production, and so forth. So, I think as an African fund, I think they should have been allocating a large part of the investment to invest inside the continent. So this is already a problem itself. The continent doesn't have enough infrastructure, but they invest their capital into other continents. So I don't think that's a good move from the sovereign fund. But here's another thing that I found really intriguing, right? The fund doesn't have audited financial statements. I found their reports about the funds, right? So they have here some of the reports, I believe, and I was able to get some of the reports they have included here. So there is a big gap there, by the way. No audited financials at all. They have reports based on each trimester, right? For the year 2017, for the year 2016, for the year 2015, 2014, nothing from the year 2012, the year that the fund was launched, nothing for 2013. And then you also notice that after 2017, there is no reports whatsoever. The only report we see later is in 2021. So let's look into what these reports show, okay? So in 2017, these amounts are in millions of US dollar. As you can see, let me make this larger. So here's what we're seeing, right, in terms of this report. So, as I said, there is no audited financials, unfortunately, but this is what the current board has provided to the rest of us to see how the sovereign fund has been doing. So unfortunately, again, nothing in English, but I'll do my best to help you get a sense of what is going on. So ativo means, asset, passivo liabilities, and fundos próprios, that's your capital of the fund. And then resultados is basically your P&L. That's what's going on. So in 2017, we're seeing the fund has 5.034 billion in total assets, and the large part of the assets, we can see 2.3 billion of these 5 billion were allocated to investment in subsidiaries, and then we have 1.9 billion in financial asset in joint venture, and then another huge part of asset we are seeing that was put into money market, as well as kind of certificates of deposits in a way. That's kind of the easiest translation, right? So almost a billion respectively into money markets, really. And then when we look at into the liabilities of the entity, there is some interest liabilities, there is some vendors liability. So they paid about 73 million in vendors. I would be curious to see who are those vendors that are being paid 73 million. um, uh, $73 million for these funds. Is it technology support? Is it infrastructure? And then they have about 98 million in compensation, right? That we're seeing. It would be really interesting to see, who are being paid these amounts, and what the justification for these expenses. And then the fund had a its own was launched at 5.2 billion. That's at least what they're telling us. And the fund had about 52.6 million in revenues, 42 million in operational expense. So, and we don't really have much. So this is basically what they gave us here was balance de verificación, like a trial balance in a way, right? So that's what I was looking at. And here's what is really interesting though. From 2017, from a $5 billion fund, in 2021, this fund is only worth 2.9 billion. So it literally, almost 2 billion decline in assets. So where that 2 billion went, I don't know. I don't want to speculate, but the lack of audited financials uh, f- complete financial statement, I think to me that raises a lot of red flags, and I wonder where the 2 billions went. As an Angolan, as an African, I think it's pretty concerning. And the presentation of the financial also changed. You know, now we don't know where this investment into subsidiaries 2.3 billion went, because we're not seeing it here. We're still seeing this investment in joint venture kind of still there, but we saw also a decline. We don't know whether or not they sold those investments or not. Any of the money markets, we were they changed drastically these. So and then in the liability side, everything just looks different. And then from the 5.2 billion that the fund was launched, now we're only seeing about 2.5 billion. So at the end of the day, right, there are a lot of questions unanswered in this fund. um, Thanks God they provided a more detailed P&L this time around. We're seeing some decent revenue generation, mainly coming from um, interest instrument. But I'm thinking if this is interest revenue, then they held a lot of bonds and fixed income type of securities. And then we have, you know, some operating expenses coming up here, but that's really what we have here. At the end of the day, I would have hoped to see a sovereign fund actually having audited financial statements than simply giving trial balance or unaudited financial statements. And then, the gap on the financial reporting is really concerning. So to the Angolan government, I would hope that they are actually looking into these things and paying attention how the investment of what is supposed to be public fund for future generations is going, and make sure people are actually answering some of these questions. So I hope this video helped us get a little bit of understanding of the Angolan sovereign fund, and I'd love to hear your comments. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please do. And I try to create a little bit of content every here and there. If you wanna stay in touch, reach out to me. I'd love to connect and hear your perspective. The next video I'll be doing on Sonangol, Angola's largest company, still state-owned. So we're gonna look into that in the next video, maybe next week. So we'll see. It's been great doing this video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoy making it. I will see you soon.